When you get green premiums to zero, then politicians are allowed to get up and say, hey, I'm going to ban all gasoline cars in 2035, and nobody pelts them with tomatoes.
Right.
And so, hey, we have a category. Now that assumes, there's a nice footnote there, assuming electric grid is still reliable, still cheap, and 100% clean. But oh well, piggybacking electricity is the name of the game here, because it's the only clean energy that we know how to move around reasonably. I mean, hydrogen is this whole area of, now people are finally talking about it, but electricity will be the key. But I don't think many people understand, like when you would say to a Biden person who says the 2035 zero, what size electric grid are they talking about? How much natural gas and gasoline, our industrial process energy load has been taken over by that electric grid.
It's interesting because one of the, kind of pivot points among climate activists and people who are thinking about our climate future is this 2030 goal versus a 2050 goal. And there's a lot of, I was talking to a climate scientist the other day who talked about what he calls the sort of empty radicalism of 2050 goals, and that it allows people to promise, we're going to go to zero emissions by 2030 and make a lot of kind of promises that may or may not turn out to be true because they're so far in the distance, and that what we really need are emissions cuts now. We need to get to half of our emissions by 2030. And what really matters is what we do in the near term. And you have a completely opposite view about this.
I don't get, what's he saying about steel? What's he saying?
Yeah.
What's he saying about cement?
Yeah.
I mean, look, what is he going to do by 2030? Okay, is he funding? I fund more direct air capture companies than anyone. I fund more battery companies than anyone. Where's his open source model of the grid and the grid being reliable? What is he doing? Yeah. This whole field, I don't get it.
Too focused on the near term.
Near-term goals are part of the thing. I mean, we should get those, electric cars, getting it from 2% up. That's a lot of work to do that. And the tax incentive helps do that, and figuring out the economics of the charging points. And we should proceed with the low green premium categories to go for large-scale deployment. You have solar, wind, and electric cars that are ready for prime time. And getting those going full bore is so necessary. I mean, say your grid's going to be 80% solar and wind. You're going to have to build more per year, 3 times more per year than you did in your peak year, every year between now and 2035. And that's not even counting transmission. So yes, I believe in those things going full speed. Then you have things that are medium mature, electric heat pumps, offshore wind, artificial meat. There you need different types of tax credit things to get them from where they're very niche and medium green premium today into the scale level, so they move into that last category. And then you have things that are early stage, like direct air capture, steel, cement, aviation fuel, hydrogen powered planes. And those things are so early that basic R&D and pretty modest procurement guarantees are needed. So you need to look at the maturity level, and the green premium is the perfect tool to do that with. The metric that tells you if you're going to get to 2050 is the green premium. Mm-hmm. That's when you call India on 2050 and you say, sir, will you fly your planes green? Will you make your buildings green? Will you turn your lights on green? And if they say no, you failed. I funded Impossible. I funded Beyond. Breakthrough Energy has a bunch of new ones, including Nature's Find, which is super interesting because they use fungi to actually do the protein production. And it looks like it's very efficient. Every industry is subject to competition. So put aside climate change. If somebody can make ground beef that tastes as good for a lower price, is that un-American? Do you really have to kill the cow? I mean, I don't know. Some people find it fun. Some people find that unattractive. It's great that the cow-based approach, people are looking at ways of reducing emissions by changing the diet or capturing the methane. And so you should never count out the dominant means of production. And, the agricultural sector, in terms of if biofuels are able to be competitive, then your demand on the agriculture sector, you're adding into their role in this. I eat, normal beef. I mix in the other beef. Will there potentially be competition in ground beef? And will that somewhat be preferred because of climate-related reasons? Other people can look at the dynamics in the market in terms of the cost structures, and they have an R&D pathway where they truly fool you and you can't tell the difference.
Right.
And you can be skeptical that will they achieve that. There are some of these products, like the Nature Finds ones that come out later this year, where I really could not tell. In fact, I actually thought it was better. But I'm not Nathan Myhrvold. I don't write cookbooks and, do taste tests for high-end companies. Well, we have to be a little careful when we motivate people that care about climate to stick to things that are largely true. Even though it's such an important cause, you might think, hey, we'll take a little license here. So when you have a climate conference and you bring in, say, a kid who's been in a hurricane, and you're like, oh my God, a hurricane. We have to stop these hurricanes. And if we just do the right thing for climate, there'll never be a hurricane again. That's pushing the envelope, I would say. Yes, climate causes more intense hurricanes, we believe today. But as the earth dries, you get less mosquitoes. Now, what you do get higher temperature, you do get the cities in Africa that were placed high up because the mosquitoes couldn't get there to not have malaria. And so the patterns of where the insect disease stuff will be, they'll be in new areas. They may even bite a few rich people, like Lyme disease. So yes, there will be some shift in where those things go. Overall, because of huge deforestation caused by climate change, the number of mosquitoes in the world will be less. Now, malaria happens to be a problem that I think we should solve using tools. Letting malaria continue and saying, oh my God, it'll be worse because of climate change, that's not my strategy. My strategy is let's get rid of malaria. Believe me, the plan for getting rid of malaria is a lot clearer, who has to do what and how it happens, including how it gets financed, than any source of climate emissions. Humanity owes it to itself to get rid of malaria. Whenever you make mistakes, you have to learn from them. And the U.S. has so much talent, so much ability to get things right, so much ability to lead the world and help. Almost every infectious disease event of the last 100 years, the U.S. Played a very strong role. The CDC is the most respected health organization. In this one, we didn't set a good example, and we even withdrew from the WHO. So, it wasn't our finest hour, but I remain optimistic, and I look at the new team that's engaged, looking at the science, being willing to deliver the bad news that the next few months are going to continue to be tough. And, I feel great that we're correcting some of the mistakes that were made.